Welcome in to Wolves After Dark, everyone. We are here. The season is over, and we are doing off-season content for maybe the first time in like the 5 years that we've done this. If you're new here, if you're an OG here, like the video and leave a comment. Who was your favorite player of the year? It can be as easy as Ant, or it can be somebody that didn't get as much playing time, like Dilly or TJ or whoever. But let us know in the comments. We're here to recap the season a little bit. So we're not going to go through in great detail, of course. We all watched the season together, but just kind of looking back at our thoughts on the season, maybe some predictions that we had in the early season, how we feel about going into next season, possibly some players that we might be looking at via trade, and then also go through and do a tier list for the whole season, something we've talked about doing for years and never done. Ashwin's super pumped for the tier list. But
planning for weeks.
We have been planning for weeks, researching our butts off. But yeah, we're here to recap the season. The Timberwolves make it to the conference finals for the second year in a row. In a year where I think a lot of people, well, at least myself, thought that this was going to be a little bit more of a down year. I think my prediction coming into the season was that we were going to be closer to a 500 team. I think I said like 45 wins or something like that. Not that's like so far off, but we played pretty well and ended the season outside of the Western Conference Finals. Pretty amazing. I mean, after the Julius injury, I don't know what our record was, but it was something crazy. It was something like 30 wins and 10 losses. So that's pretty amazing. But Ashwin, how did you feel about the season? Do you feel satisfied after this season, or do you feel like this was a failure of a season, like people on Twitter are saying, or do you think? How are you feeling?
I wasn't prepared to talk at all. I was here to listen to you. And I was so ready to listen.
Yeah.
You asked, we delivered, we're delivering off-season content. And yeah, this season was a success. Like, I don't think it is like a win or like win a championship or like fold the franchise type scenario. We got to see a lot of growth within the inner workings of our team and kind of realize that maybe we were better off without certain players and or shorten our rotation to see certain players play out their role or play up to their expectation. I think there's been a lot of lessons learned, and I think that's always kind of like growing pains. Like, yeah, those are kind of like, victories within themselves, but like, we didn't win, so what was the point of the whole season? But I think it was really cool to see the arc of our team, because we started slow. We had this really ridiculous trade right before training camp, and a lot of kind of like wounds needed to be healed, but also like a team needed to re-identify themselves. And in my mind, we replaced shooting with shooting. We replaced size with size and girth. We replaced playmaking with playmaking, but all within like that. We added depth as well, and so like we almost added, and as opposed to replaced. And I thought that was actually kind of a win in a lot of ways. And it took us a while to kind of figure that out and mature into that, like our final form. And maybe that is going to be like lessons learned, is maybe there's still some room left for us to grow and discover. And we didn't realize it because we never really like believed in it throughout the season and or postseason. I think our team might be a little bit easier to predict than other teams. And we saw depth kind of win out this year. Yeah. And maybe we need to rely a little bit more on our depth and kind of play into our parts to our puzzle for coming into next year. So in a lot of ways, that's a win, because like we got to see that even through dramatic kind of shifts prior to the season starting.
Yeah, I agree. And to your point about the trade, trading basically everything for itself, but just getting a little bit deeper. We were talking about this just before we went live or started recording, whatever. Because right now, as we're recording, Porzingis was traded to the Hawks, and the Celtics are doing all their weird trades to get out of the second apron, which they did successfully. And on top of that, they're adding still quality players while keeping themselves under that. which is frustrating in a way. But at the same time, we kind of did a version of that last year where we traded Cat, who's a supermax player, for Julius Randle, who plays the same position and plays, some would maybe say similarly, but like he fills that role that Cat had for us. And then we add shooting of Dante on top of that to make ourselves deeper. And clearly, I think you're right about the depth part of it. Look at the finals. It was the Pacers versus OKC, two ridiculously deep teams where even when Halliburton went down, which was gut wrenching in the seventh game, I didn't think for a second that that meant the game was over because Indiana has so much fight and so much depth that they can make up for that. Now, of course, Halliburton is a fantastic player and he can hit those clutch moments for you, but um, just because he went down did not make me think immediately, oh, OKC just won. Um, but at the same time, OKC won because they have unbelievable depth. Um, and this actually kind of brings me to a question that I had for you that we did not prepare for. So if you're not ready for this, that's okay. I can maybe yap a little bit about
Okay.
what I think. But um, going forward, team construction wise, obviously we just missed out on Kevin Durant. If that's a miss, I don't know what you want to say about that. If you want to say anything about that, um, but in my mind, it feels like we have two paths to go forward, and we may have already pre-selected this when we traded for Rudy and giving up all of our picks. And I mean, players, it wasn't so much. I mean, of course, maybe we could use a Beasley right now to hit some threes, but that's really about it that you could argue player wise that we're missing from that. Um, but seeing OKC, that's kind of like a dream team of like what I would want to construct roster wise if I was making like a 2K team or something like that. I want to have a bunch of young talent and I want to have a bunch of draft picks and I want to have cap flexibility. All three of those things. That is a recipe for success maybe, and now clearly they can win the finals and they're going to have basically the same team if not the same exact team going into next year. Um, so that's one path. The other path is the more common one I feel like we see in the NBA, where teams will build up a young star or two, and then they will trade everything around to get a couple big players, a couple big pillars around those players to win now and kind of take some of their depth away. So my long-winded question, I guess, is are you happy with the direction that it seems like we're going in with Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels with trading a lot of picks and stuff like that for Rudy, which we already did, of course. And the rumors about a KD trade that we had talked about trading like Rudy, Dante, Dillingham, or TJ and a pick. Like, do you think that that's still capable? Do you think that's still like a winning method in Tim's view, or like, do you agree with that way, or would you rather be going the OKC route?
You can argue that this is the best 2 years in franchise history.
Yep.
So that means the best years are even yet to come. And we are doing it with star players that are under, below their, beneath their prime. They are still growing into their role, their bodies, and what they can ultimately become, which could be the face of the franchise or not, like face of the
Mhm.
league or whatever. And that's very exciting. And how do you do that? Well, you do that by making moves to surround your talent that you are putting all of your, all of your eggs into that basket. Like you're putting it all in on those players becoming something,
Yeah.
but also at least being at worst like a mediocre team to
Yep.
be competitive, to
Mhm.
learn what winning means, and like building a team that's fostering around a winning culture. Oh my God, we've had decades. We
Yeah.
had it with Cat and Wiggins and Levine, where we were just building a team with a nucleus of players who were always like me first players,
Mhm.
and they were the star of their teams, and they don't know how to win together. Like it never happened, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Um, when we had that nucleus, we also brought in like the Andre Millers and Kevin Garnett's, and like we brought in those players to teach our young dudes
Mhm.
what winning went like. But did that mature into anything? Did that become anything? We've had countless years of rebuilding with
Yeah.
young players at the helm, from Randy Foy to like it doesn't even matter anymore. Why'd I mention him? Um, I think OKC is an anomaly, man. They are flat out unicorn because they went out on a mission and they just like regurgitated like former great talent into just picks and
Yeah.
picks that
Mhm.
became a Jalen Williams because he was just a year older, that he fell in the draft, or like reclamation projects like not Alex Caruso's not a reclamation project, but like rounding out your roster with players that have seen a lot but need to just win, and so they're like cultural winners, and a lot of players that were kind of like maybe they go late in the draft, but that's because they're on a team culture in college. So when they're
Yeah.
brought into a team culture in NBA, they already are. They're not the best player of the team. They are a part of a team, and
Mhm.
so they all kind of bought into that. And I don't think that happens regularly. I think there's only like a couple teams that really kind of bank on that success, and even some of that is like CBA related, which I couldn't even
Yeah.
recite. But like
Yeah.
the OKC Thunder when they had Durant, Ibaka, Westbrook, James Harden, what the hell? That is insane. How did they not win? How did they not win?
Mhm.
They got damn close, and then egos and money aside, drifted that team apart. And so what we decided to do, and what my long answer is basically saying is like, I wanted it this way. I wanted it to like, so we recognize Ant immediately, like day one. It's going
Yeah.
to be Ant riding this team to wherever we go, and we're going to build around him. And we let all of the other pieces go.
Mhm.
Every other piece that we had, they're not with us except for like Nas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even then, that was like, it might not, who knows what's going to happen in this offseason. So, like, just to build around him to win now. So then when he's in his prime, like we're winning more,
Mhm.
we're better than we were. Like I think winning just sets an expectation of a floor where we
Mhm.
can't do worse than this. Otherwise, it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a for me in my brain, it's kind of a tricky issue that I go back and forth on a little bit because on the one hand, I totally agree with what you're saying, and I would much rather have a competitive team, even if it was mediocre, rather than the 16 and 66 teams or whatever. Like that's the stuff that I want to avoid because that was just dreadful. Um, but at the same time, the thing that I worry about right now, I guess specifically over like the next year or two, is like, okay, you've got an old Rudy Gobert who you just re-signed for 3 years, and your goal was to go out and get a Kevin Durant who's even older.
Was
And
that
then
our goal? Was that our goal?
it sounds, I mean, I don't know. Of course, we
I
don't
don't
have
think that was our goal,
sources,
man.
but all the sources out there say that we were trying to get Kevin Durant. Maybe that was just to help leverage for other teams. I don't know.
Yeah, it's always
Um,
going to be that way.
it is, but it seemed like that was something that was maybe of interest to them, and like John Krasinski says that that was a possibility. So I guess I kind of believe him, um, but if that was the goal, then it's like okay, so then you're not going to have any future assets to trade once that doesn't work, or if KD gets injured, or if Rudy gets injured. So I get worried about that. Um, you know, thinking about the future, not just that year, because if we traded for KD and we had to give up Gobert, it's like, okay, well then we still don't have a point guard and we still don't have a center. How do we acquire those? Are we just going to play Nas at center and just say YOLO? And are we going to play Mike 20 minutes at point guard and be like, you know what? We'll have Nah fill in for the rest. Like that clearly hasn't worked for us. So there's just things like that that I worry about the win now versus the build like a really sustainable team. But to your other point, you know, OKC is somewhat of an anomaly. I push back a little bit. I do think that the Celtics also did something very similar where they
Oh,
tanked and then they got Jalen Brown, they got Jason Tatum, and now they've got this crazy team of depth, which now they're trading away those pieces, but for good
yeah.
pieces. But
I mean, at the same time, for every Boston, there's a Philadelphia. Like
yep,
Philadelphia went all in with all their
that's true.
processing, and then they didn't do anything.
Yeah,
They got
that's
so
true.
close, and they didn't do anything.
Yep. That's a good point. That's a good point. But I'm just, I guess, thinking about going forward, and maybe we're recording this the day before the draft, so maybe something significant happens tomorrow. I don't know. I mean, it does seem like we're probably not going to keep our first round pick. That's what I've heard from sources, not personal sources, just Twitter. But but it does make sense for us to trade into like next year or something like that, so that we can keep some flexibility money wise to re-sign some players, but or have them opt into their options and whatnot. So, but we'll get into that another time.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like OKC is maybe a year away from having to pay a bunch of players a bunch of
Yeah.
money.
Yep.
So they're going to repeat what they just did in terms of like, maybe not NBA champions, but they're going to be at the doorstep.
Yep.
And, the East is so insane right now, especially with all these injuries with Jason
Exactly.
Tatum and aforementioned Tyrese Halliburton. And
Yeah.
so the East is just wide open.
Mhm.
And, what are they doing? They're trading uh um for like Niang and like Simons, and then like what did you say? Terrence Mann is now a Brooklyn net. Like
Yeah.
teams are going crazy because
Mhm.
there's an opening and an appetite to win. Because if you don't get Cooper Flag, what was this whole season for you?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
were a bottom team, and yet again, you're not getting the pick, and I feel terrible for certain teams, but it's like
Mhm.
that's how the NBA has decided they wanted to do.
Yep.
Uh, the draft where the bottom four isn't like necessarily guaranteed.
Yeah.
And so you have to kind of keep pressing the gas. And I think we are in a really interesting state where we just like relinquished our owner. We have
Mhm.
a new air about us. I'm hearing fun jerseys are coming, to Target Center
Yes.
next year. At least
Super
like
excited.
kind of like what was
Yes.
formerly awesome jerseys. And just like the vibe is kind of already we're cultivating a winning culture, so then the fans are there, everything's great. um I also think that like, yeah, we can make moves and teams are desperate, and there's a gap in the East. Teams are going to inquire about certain players. Hey, Julius
Mhm.
Randle probably had a career-ish year, if not for the postseason, because he probably ran out of gas. um like we could field offers, and I'm pretty sure we're not the only ones calling. Like people are calling us. And I think while I wasn't in a full agreement with how we handled our roster, like why we were so like we only like played eight and a half players sometimes,
Yeah.
like there's a lot of depth in our team that's like untapped. And I think I'm
Mhm.
excited about what's gonna happen tomorrow. Like maybe, yeah, we draft another player because I think draft assets are a huge commodity in our league. But that could be packaged with and we could upgrade somehow. And like I don't know money really, but like if we can add to this team. Like what was huge was a couple years ago we didn't do any trades, right? We
Mhm.
just kept our roster intact, and
Yep.
then we like shanked them. We sweeped Phoenix.
Yeah.
We went to Denver and we took them to 7. Like that's what happened when we just built a team and we kept it
Mhm.
growing. So maybe we do something similar because we made a huge trade and we
Yep.
are figuring that out still. And maybe there is some energy that is lost and we might have to trade that energy, get new energy. But I'm feeling really optimistic about what this season kind of unfolded for us.
Mhm.
And we have a lot of work to do, but like, I don't know, I kind of trust in what we're expecting to do.
Yeah, the playoffs, honestly, I know it wasn't perfect, and we went up against an injured Golden State, and some would argue an incomplete Lakers team. But still, we beat them both confidently. And both of those series kind of gave me a little bit more confidence that it's like, I mean, this is kind of the boring option, but maybe we do run it back. Maybe I'm okay with running it back to a degree. Um, because we play, I mean, if you think about it, since after the Julius trade or after the Julius injury, when he and Dante came back, Dante wasn't necessarily amazing, but um, the team won a ton of games. We won like 60 or 7%
Yeah.
of our games. So if we have a whole season of that, then instead of the 6 seed, you're the 1, 2, 3 seed, probably not the one, but somewhere in that realm. Um, it makes possibly an easier path to the playoffs. I don't know. Even in a tricky West, which it seems like we're still capable of doing that. Ant's going to get a full off season of rest for the first time um, since in a while. So that could be helpful. I guess what I'm saying here, what it sounds like you might be okay with too, is that if we run it back, I'm not going to be super sad. Obviously, I think we had success this last season, and I think I mean, we mentioned this before. The cat trade happened 2 days before training camp. So, like, they had no time to do it, and they had to have Julius get hurt so that he could kind of understand the flow of the team. But that was months in. And as you mentioned earlier, like it was a very slow start for the team. It was not fun to begin the season. Um, so
Yeah.
no, I'm definitely down to kind of run it back even with everybody. I don't know how that works roster wise because I do think that if we keep our draft pick, we can't keep Nah or something like that, which I don't know. I mean, we'll get into the tier list here in a second, but like it would be hard for me to willingly be like, yeah, sure, we just have to let Nah go. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I just don't like we have players like Terrence Shannon Jr. that I'm very excited to see play more, and he's not getting minutes because we have Dante, Nas,
Pecking order
and
crap.
yeah, exactly. So like
Oh,
it would be nice to have him go up in that order, but that's going to require one or multiple of those players to either be gone, traded, or or injured, which of course we don't want to have happen. So
I mean, we made these moves before we traded for Cat, like or traded Cat. Like we
mhm.
drafted and traded for Dillingham. We drafted Terrence Shannon Jr. and we had Clark as like kind of like a redshirt because he was injured. They were probably going to be a meaningful part of our rotation, and then we made this trade to add more depth, right? Like,
Yep.
and who would have thought that that trade was happening? Well, maybe they were thinking about this the whole time, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Perhaps.
I wouldn't put it past them to make another big trade though, and that's also very exciting. And so,
Yeah.
one thing that I thought was maybe the key, and we'll get into in the tier list, was just like our internal depth improved. Like certain players that we saw um, as like a shell of themselves in former years, like are really coming into their own now. And I think there's like a future core that's our current core. And isn't that exciting? Like you can
Mhm.
build multiple teams around a couple of these core pieces. And I think that's
Yes.
gonna be great. As a Rudy Gobert, Randall, Conley fade out,
Mhm.
there's room to come and well, there's room for improvement. And well, I'll be a better public speaker in a minute here. So
Yeah. No, I totally agree with what you're saying. We can pull up that tier list. And here it is.
whoa, I
So
missed you, buddy.
it's been a long time. And we do have some ceremonial procedure to go through in the beginning here. Um, as you noted earlier, today officially, Alex Rodriguez and Mark Laurie have taken ownership of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they're moving the team to Seattle. No, and, Glenn Taylor
No
is
more
gone.
lasagna. Oh no.
There is no more lasagna. So together, let's all put our hand on the mouse. Here we go. We're deleting Glenn Taylor. Goodbye, Glenn.
Halo soundtrack.
Yeah. Goodbye, Glenn. Boom. There it
Oh,
goes.
that was ceremonious.
Wow, look at this nice clean tier list. We have a ton of room to add more tiers. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe. We'll see. Cool. Well, we haven't done this for the full season yet. What I normally say is that we're doing this based off of players' expectations coming into the game. Um, but now this is just a regular tier list. This is how did they do for the season and how do we feel about their season? Um, the rating still means somewhat of the same thing. A1 is unforgettable. You're going to tell your future children about this. Wancho is they took away from the team actively. And cash is like they either had a really this one is a little bit more specific to the season. This is like, oh, they shot really well or something like that. But this can just be more of an order here. And then meh is kind of like it was what we expected, or somewhere in between. So we're not going to go through probably stats or anything like that either. I mean, maybe a couple stats. Like I do have a couple, not like play stats, but I have some numbers of like players that had like A1 performances throughout the season that I might kind of mention as we go along. But that's pretty much the extent of it. It's pretty simple. And if you disagree, let us know in the comments if you think somebody should be higher or lower. Um, but I guess we'll get started. I feel like I should pull up like a list of all the players so we can go in order. Do you have a list up, or I can pull one up? Let's see here.
I am so prepared. You
That's
know,
okay. You don't have to. I don't want your camera to freak out.
I got it, man.
Oh, you have
Um,
it. Okay,
I have it, man.
perfect. I see. I
So
lost the
let's
joke.
start with Joe Ingles.
Okay.
Um, he played in 19 games, and that's about it. He inbounded some passes.
He did inbound some passes. I don't know how much we put him in this ranking during the regular season, but well, before I get to the tier that I'm going to put him in or that I think he should be in, um, this was a wildly disappointing season from what I thought was going to happen out of Joe Ingles. I thought that we were going to have some. I thought he was going to play a lot of games, like maybe not as much as like Mike Conley played, which wasn't a ton either. But like I thought that there was going to be regular Joe Ingles minutes, and that
Yep.
it wasn't just going to be literally like 5 inbound passes and that's
I
it.
really don't
Like,
think you're the only one who was thinking that. I think we made that trade early in the offseason. And
yes.
you're like, what is this move? It's not, doesn't feel great, but it also feels like, ooh, he's a 3-point shooting version of slow mo.
And he shot well last season. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't
Play
like
for like
he was
Orlando
a
or something, right?
yeah, he played for Orlando. And I if I'm remembering correctly, I think he shot over 40%. So I
Yep.
was thinking that okay, in our offense, he's gonna be the one that gets open at times because we've got like Ant out there getting a double, Julius at least drawing one, if not two. So then we can maybe kick it to Joe Ingles for a three, and that would be a really good way to play. And he's played with Rudy. You could have some lobs to Rudy. I thought it was going to be great. That didn't happen. So at the end of the day, for the season, I mean, clearly he was affected by either age or something. So I'm putting him in old.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that also he could stay around and be, if he's interested in being in this figure for us, I'm fine with it. I think
Me too.
we need a player that's like he keeps things light but also keeps you accountable, and I think
Yes.
he's a consummate professional, and like I would hate to lose someone like that on our team. He's also kind of like this sneaky Rudy whisperer where he's had a lot of time with him, and so it's like, yeah, it's like year 4 of Rudy, and we still have yet to learn how to pass to him. Maybe one of these days, but at least like Joe Ingles, you know,
Yeah,
can
yeah,
like
you're right.
teach Ant how to pass to him. I mean, I don't know.
I agree with that. I agree. But
The old
unfortunately,
tier.
it's old.
Um. Okay, so Cameron, do we talk about all these players? Because we have Bones Highland who played 4 games. We have Leonard Miller who could be potentially in our rotation. We have Josh Minot. Why not be on another team? Like we have these players that like are on our roster, but are they?
I mean, it's hard to grade some of them because so much of it was garbage time for a lot of these players. It's like I don't really care about Luca. Minot. I mean, Minot, I guess we could maybe say something because he was kind of expected early in the season to be kind of like a big player for us, and then he ended up not being. So, I mean, I'd honestly probably go with like Wancho or Matter We Care About You, Bud, for him. But yeah, I don't think we need to go through all these players. Honestly, we can probably focus on like the main like 10, 10 or 11 or something like that. So,
Yeah.
um,
Um. Let's do it. So Jalen Clark, he started 4 games for us. He played 40, which is
that's
half the
crazy.
season. And it wasn't because of injuries. It was just because of rotation. We had just a lot of depth at that position, apparently. And I think that he could have had a role. In that role that he was given, 4 points and a bunch of nothing really to talk about. But, in 13 minutes, I think you could get 18 minutes, 20 minutes a game, especially with the potential departure of a couple other players, and especially with like Conley getting old. His role could just improve by just nature of being on our roster. I actually really liked what I saw from him, and I would like to
I do
hear what
too.
your thoughts are. And is he like? I would like to almost like pose this question: is he a piece you're excited about wanting to keep around, or you're like, if we give him a package, I'm like, oh, I'm okay with losing him.
I'd be upset if we lost him because and this is the one reason why I think the one player, maybe one of 2 players that make me comfortable in losing somebody like Nah, or Dante, or even to a degree Nas, but I don't think I'm ready to say that.
We've seen it in spurts, but we haven't seen it in like some length, some like duration of extended play. And in addition, like maybe 3 or 4 games here or there, but like there was a reason why he's not on the court.
Yeah, there is. There certainly is. But I think for me, I just didn't expect him to be able to shoot as well as he did. I'm not saying he shot lights out, but like he had some games where he hit some threes, like many threes, that it was like, okay, I mean, I can kind of see this. And defensively, he played well at times too. Um, the part that I struggle with Jalen Clark is that he's a point guard that is still the same, that still presents the same problem for us. We need like a general out there that's going to be able to command, like, they need to be able to have like a good handle, a good like ball handling skills. They need to be able to run the offense without us having to worry if they're going to turn the ball over. And he is not that player, even though he's a point guard. Maybe we haven't given him enough like time to develop into that player. But I did like his defense. I did like some of the threes that he was making. It seemed way better. I mean, he missed a lot of layups, but he also made some too. He's a player that I like. That if he slotted in for some of Nas minutes, if Nas gone, I'd be excited. But we would need him to take more steps because he's not fully there yet to be able to be like, oh yeah, I could rely on him like I rely on Nas. So.
Like, what do we want out of him? What do we want out of that player, that mold? We want a defensive ace. We want to like an fu, Jamal Murray. We're throwing this guy on you now, and you can't do anything about it. We're gonna experience this in droves, in spades, and in I don't know what I'm saying. In like every team in the West has this like guard heavy, like focus driven roster, and we need guards to guard them. We need this player on our roster, and he is cheap. That is a very important part of his contract is that he's very cheap and he's like not easy to find. And we found him in the draft. You know, per 36, he's averaging 11 points. Like that's also remarkable for whatever the stats are that I don't understand. But look at that hashtag analysis.
Wow.
Be amazed at all of this off-season content. And like I just think that we have a big gap. One in maturity, like late game execution, maybe be damned because we did fairly well this year, but we have a ball handling issue on our roster.
Yes.
And so if a Jalen Clark, if an Ant, if a Nah, if a anyone other than Conley is dribbling the basketball, we have kind of like a need for another player to be a secondary like reliable ball handler. So can Clark develop into that? That is going to be one of my what ifs. Like if he becomes this, start his ass.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
He's going to be huge for us. And I'm excited. I'm really excited. And one more thing, this is like kind of a general comment I'm going to have. I hope you agree with me. We lost a lot of picks for Gobert. We traded some picks in the 2030s for Dillingham. We traded a lot of picks, and so these are our rewards. Like, so we have to kind of cultivate this talent. And like a lot of what Tim Connolly did in Denver. Like, I don't know what really matured out of that, but but what we have here is a lot of room for growth. So I would love to see like an OKC methodology of using all our players in huge moments and in like long durations of stretches in the season, and not just like 20 games.
No, yeah, exactly. It needs to be more.
Then you're going to have an Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe moment in Game 5, Game 6. You're going to have like a TJ McConnell like series takeover. You know what I mean? So
exactly. And I can envision a future. Going back to what you said earlier, like we have that future core of our roster that's currently playing, but also the future of our team. In like, okay, well, what if Dillingham does develop into our starting point guard, and then we have Jalen Clark to come in second. Maybe he's the backup point guard for us, and he's more of the defensive focused player. And then we throw him out there in certain circumstances, similar to like we do with Na right now. I can see it, but no. To get back to his season, like he did provide some of my favorite moments of the season. He was some of the fun ones that I was really not expecting. Seeing his defense, he was a part of some of those OKC games where we came back and won. That was super fun.
Incredible.
And I think some of the games that I went to in Minnesota, he played well too. So it was very fun for me and it's memorable to me. But where do you have him on a grade for the season?
Yeah, I would be okay with anything above Matt. We care about you, but I think nice feels great.
I think nice
Are
is
we
probably
giving him
accurate.
too much of a pass? Because
Well, I mean, yeah, it depends on how we want to have the rules go. Because if we want to be similar to how we do games, and we say, okay, what was our
how
expectations
did the
coming
season
into the
go? Like
season?
how did the season go? It was nice.
It went nice, and he didn't play. He wasn't played enough because he wasn't valuable enough. He wasn't not valuable. That's the wrong word. He wasn't polished enough to be playing in all of the big moments of the season. But
Yeah.
he was able to be thrown into many. So,
and a lot of these stats kind of go against him because he's playing garbage time when like we're winning by 20
yeah.
or something, so like, or
Yep.
we're losing by 25, 30. So like these stats don't really do it justice. Hey, Terrence Shannon Jr. only played in 32 games in the regular season. Bolstered that number in the playoffs, but 4 points, couple rebounds, couple, there's no stats to really talk about. So it's more like if we bump down to per 36 numbers, look at me with my analysis here.
My goodness.
He'd be averaging 15 points.
Okay.
Whoa.
I mean,
averaging 15 points, 53% shooting from the field, and he'd be like a 36% 3-point shooter. Oh, inject that into my sleeve and in my veins. in summary, I'm a huge fan of high energy, but like they know their limitations players. And so like a Corey Brewer was crazy because he was high energy, but he also didn't know how to dribble and he didn't know how to do anything once he had the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
Lots of players kind of fit that mold, but Terrence Shannon Jr. got drafted in a NBA ready body and a skill set that we so sorely needed. I can picture, you probably can also picture him being our second fiddle to Ant.
Yeah.
I could see it happening. Like he could be our Jalen Williams to Shea. Like, whoa, that's a huge, tall order, but I see it.
Though.
And I think we keep him. I think it's going to be a huge season for him, off season 2. And I think we're going to lose a piece or two, and he's going to fit right in. We note that in the playoffs, he was used as like a small ball 4, as even like a random ass 5. And he could just sprint and get a shot on any given moment. He will be a zone buster. That was a huge problem for us in the playoffs. And I just thought his season was excellent in the fact that he was barely given a chance.
I agree. I think he was the player that his season is the one that I'm probably going to think about the most and remember the most out of maybe everybody. I mean, I know like of course there's like Ant moments and Jaden moments and stuff like that, but and Julius moments, but like this is what you and I came into. If you watch our season preview back, we talked about Terrence Shannon Jr. being the player that we were going to be most excited about, and I think we're still feeling that today. I'm still very excited about next season. The only thing that worries me is that he is older, because he is like 25 going on 26 or something.
No, he's Ant's age.
Is he?
He's basically a year older than Ant.
Yeah, he's okay. So he's 24 and he's about to turn 25 in July.
Oh, that's what you said. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's in one respect, it's like, okay, well, he's kind of in like his not his prime, but like he's right there with Ant. And a lot of the times, like Dilly to me gets excited. That gets me excited, even though he's so raw right now, because it's like, well, he's got like 4 years to like grow into the player that we want him to be.
He's turning 25 July 30th. Fuck me.
But this is also good and this is a good team construction because you draft a player that's a little bit older to be a little bit more win now, along with the player that's a little bit more of a project. So now, yeah, you could throw in Terrence Shannon Jr. right now, and I could see the second fiddle. I can see even if he's not that prominent of a role, like I can see him in one of the roles of either Dante, Nas, or Na. And I could see that happening, and I would love. I mean, we were begging for that in the OKC series. And we did play him one game and he scored, like, I had it up here. He had 15 points against OKC. Like, I mean, and it wasn't garbage time. Like, this was like actual minutes in the game. Um, it just seems obvious. I'm sure that there are some things that we are missing that Chris Finch is seeing, whether it's defensively or I don't know. There's got to be some reason that he's not getting played more. But it just seems like his energy that when he comes onto the court, regardless of whether he actually ends up scoring, is just so valuable in so many ways that I don't know how we don't play him more. I I love this season from him. I cannot wait to see next season because I think that he will be used more, especially if we lose a player like Na, or if we make a trade and trade like somebody like Julius. Um, we're gonna have to, then Nas has to fill in, and then we're gonna have another player in after Nas. So it's like, okay, that's perfect. That's exciting to me.
It's
So
exciting to me. It almost
I
feels like a new brand of basketball too, where we just like
yes,
pace up the offense.
yes. We don't have players like this ever that are just like these energizer. I mean, I guess you could maybe argue like Corey Brewer or something like that, but we
Like Shabazz
sucked.
Muhammad and shit like that.
Yeah, we
Derek
sucked
Williams,
back then, though.
but we sucked back then. Yeah.
So it didn't matter what style we played because everybody sucked on the team. But now we have
Markel Webster, anyone?
yeah, we have a quality team that if we plug a player like that in, it just feels like it would work. So I guess I'll have to wait to be proven wrong by seeing if we play him next season, but I would love to, and I really don't want to trade him. Because when I saw his name show up in some of these KD rumors, I was like, I don't like that at all. Like, I would sure, I value getting KD on the team, but not at the expense of somebody as exciting as Terrence Shannon Jr. So, but no. Anyways, I think he's going to be one of my higher graded players for this tier list, even though he didn't get as much time as we would like. I mean, for me, I feel like I'm at least at like a cash because I feel like everything he did was great.
He's a straight up cash for me too. Okay, so we start games, especially in the playoffs, so poorly. We started games where we are like taller, bigger, stronger than the average like opponent, and yet we get out hustled, out rebounded, outpaced. We're in a hole. I am smiling about the idea. I am excited about the idea of like, what if he just plays up or beyond his capacity and he's in our starting lineup? Like, how cool does that sound?
Sounds amazing. It would be amazing.
Like, who stops his ass? I don't know. Only himself, honestly.
And like, not that I want to like fantasize about this, but like, imagine like if Ant had to go down for something or miss some games or something, and we fill Terrence Shannon Jr. into Ant's place, and it's like I can just see that working. Like I can see that being exciting. Of course, he's not the same dynamic playmaker that Ant is, but having him in that lineup would be not the worst. So I just think it's very valuable to keep him around. I don't want to be trading him, especially now that Katie's gone. Like I can see how somebody might have thought, maybe we should keep him or include him. Somebody else, not me. But now that Katie's not available and didn't want to come here anyways, apparently, it seems like keep him. There's nobody else out there that you'd be giving up that many assets for anyways. So, yeah, I'm down to keep him. And he's a cash for the season.
I mean, his 3-point shooting is going to improve. He looks like he's a dog. Like, he looks like he's going to be a gym rat. He's going to be whatever adjective animal. He's going to be hustling for us. And I think that's exciting. I was not necessarily on the KD train if it meant losing our youth. I was serious about that because there's a point of no return. And you were kind of getting it. You were hinting at that, where it's like, what if we just now have no assets to trade?
Exactly.
What did we just do when we went all in on 1 year and now we are recovering with less than draft picks and Ant Edwards? Like, we could get to 40 wins, no problem, but like, is that enough? It's not.
Because then your only asset is Ant, and then you have to trade Ant and start over again, which is why you're right. That's where I was leading. And it's like, you need to still have some assets. And, if that means it was one thing, and I know I'm going off tangent, we can get back to the tier list, but like,
good.
It's one thing if you're like, okay, we're going to trade Julius and then we're going to trade, Nah or Dante or something like that, and then, the picks. If you're giving up that, I can see it because we still have basically the same framework of the team. You're just inserting a really high caliber player, high caliber scorer alongside Ant. And then, you still have defense, you still have Jaden, you still have Rudy. To me, that seemed like a really good thing. But when it was like, okay, you're giving up your center, you're giving up the future, and now you have the point guard and no center, and it's like it just doesn't. I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me. So, um, yes, you knew exactly where I was leading with that. So
I'm cracking my knuckles. I'm cracking my back. I'm stretching out. I'm getting pumped for the next season already. And we're doing this like off-season content for the first time ever. And I'm just like giddy about the idea of like what else is happening with our roster. Rob Dillingham, we barely saw him on the court. And there was a moment where we like, oh, this guy could be like, he could be like the next Jamal Crawford. He could be the
yeah,
next like, just like me first, like zone busting kind of guard off the bench, and he could do it on his own. He's very interesting as a player because like a Tyrese Maxey and like players like that are of the same height, but like they just had more opportunity than him. Like what happens if Rob had a full season to develop while learning on the court? We never got to see that.
no.
4.5 points, off of mostly garbage time. But I could see him like fitting in a role where he's not starting, but he's like our sixth man.
I can very far down the road here, but because I think that was the thing coming into this season that I have too many thoughts. But coming into this season, it was like I expected him to maybe be a little bit more ready to play than he was. I was thinking that we would see some Rob Dillingham games where it was like, whoa, he's here, and it's like he's amazing. He fits right in with the team. And there was a couple bursts, a couple small moments of that happening, but generally, I think it was like, okay, well, he's probably not ready to come in. I mean, he had some good games this season. Looking back at it, it looks like he had like a 19-point game against Utah, 12 against OKC. That was, I think, one of the games that we won because we had to play him. He had some 15-point games, a 12-point game. He had some decent games and decent moments, but I think in 2 to 3 years, I could see him possibly being a starting point guard for us. But no, similar to TJ, it's not the same, but like he can come in there and have a lot of energy and really make some like highlight plays. I think that would be really exciting, especially next to TJ. I think that is super exciting to see, and that's kind of what we were hoping for this last year. But he was 19. How old is he now? He's 20. So he's still very young. He still can't drink, so we have to wait at least a year to win the championship so that he can drink when we win. But no, I think generally, I wouldn't say I think a lot of the fan base soured over him over the season, and I think that they were kind of expecting what I was saying earlier. They were expecting him to kind of step into more of a role and play regularly for us. But I think we expected too much out of a 20-year-old than 19-year-old. And also, even the moments that he did play well, Finch was not playing him much because he was having lapses, and he's trying to teach him along the way. So if I'm going off of a tier, I mean, it feels wrong, but I think it's a we care about you, bud.
Yeah.
Because even though I think he did show some signs this year, I think there were a lot of times where I was like, oh, he's just not ready. So I do care about him. I'm ready for him. I don't think he took away from the team like a Wancho level performance, but I do care about him, and I'm excited to see him next year. I'm excited to see what he can grow with this offseason. And another player that I don't think I want to give up on and trade. Like I don't think I'm ready to do that, um but um but excited to see next season.
What excites me about him is that he's also kind of a Tim Connolly pick. Like he made that trade to pick him. He likes that type of mold of player because that fits in any system. Our system is kind of this Finch's flow stuff that like can a 19-year-old pick up? Can a 19-year-old
Yeah.
adapt to like reads and reacts and like instincts when he needs to mature in all aspects of the game, including his own body and size? What he probably was able to do in high school and college, like he had a harsh reality in the pro league where he's getting bodied.
Yeah.
He represents not necessarily next in kin, but yet another ball handler that we so desperately need.
Yeah.
How cool would that be? Because he's also one of the only players that can pass to Rudy pretty reliably. And his 3-point shooting is coming. It's not there, but it's coming. But I think his floating game is like his mid range and his ability to kind of shift through traffic represents a really fun version of our team that I would love to see. I would love to see. But I don't know. I asked you that question about like a Clark the other just a little bit ago. He's one player that I was excited about because we pushed for him. And I don't think I soured, but I'm okay with like potentially letting him go. If he's going to be some piece to get another piece in, like maybe we don't need to wait for him. Maybe we can get a ready now player, and it would be hard to let him go because he's going to freaking torch us when he gets traded or whatever, if he gets traded to another team. But like, I don't know. I think in a lot of ways, I'm excited to see what he becomes, but is he going to get opportunities?
Yeah. So wait, are you saying you'd be comfortable letting Dilly go or Clark go?
Dillingham.
Okay.
In a way where I'm not ready to let Clark go because I think his defense is like going to supplant who we might be losing in the offseason.
Yes.
And also he represents yet another really cheap contract that's going to grow with us and stay with us, I think. And he's going to be a hot commodity. Dillingham is not a defensive stalwart, and he might not ever be. And so what is he going to provide for us? Well, it's going to be a whole bunch of shooting and extra possessions and fast offense. And hopefully he matures into that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, who knows? Yeah. We could maybe find that elsewhere.
It's just a hard pill to swallow if you get rid of him after you just traded up for him. But like you said earlier,
I agree. I actually feel like there might be a bit of stubbornness where he's not going to trade for him. He's not going to trade him. Yeah, you're right on that.
Same thing with Rudy, because like a lot of people after the first year of Rudy, they're like, let's trade him. He's old. His hands don't work. And it's like, well, you can't trade him because you just traded everything for him. So, but yeah, I mean, you do have a point. We have too many point guards that aren't benefiting us right now in a starting capacity. And we need a starting point guard. And apparently our point guards are either 40 years old or 20 years old. So we need somebody that's like a 25-year-old point guard that can do that for us. Shout out DeJounte Murray.
Shout out Lonzo Ball. Mike Conley is up next in our little ranking of top 12 players or whatever.
Yep.
38-year-old, not quite 40. Actually, he's 37 and change. I'm older than him. And he averaged 8 and 4.5. So, question for you.
Yeah.
40% 3-point shooter. Can we run it back with Conley? Do we have to change how we use him? Or are we ready to move on and find something else? And are we looking for a change in the guard department?
We need a change in the guard. I don't know that there is a change in the guard out there for us. If there was a guard that was gettable, if Lonzo Ball is gettable, I know that's a name that's thrown around a lot right now. I do like that. And it does seem like a player that I think Tim Connelly would go after because he has been known to go after some of these players that have been injured and have like depressed value and, make the most of those situations. So, I do like the thought of that. However, at the same time, we haven't seen Lonzo Ball play basketball since he was a Laker. But I do like the thought of that. If we could make a bigger swing for somebody like a DeJounte Murray, or at a time it sounded like there was a possibility that even the Spurs, if they were going to go after KD, they might lose. DeAndre Fox, or what am I saying? De'Aaron Fox. My goodness. But players like that, it's like, okay, well, that's interesting to go after. but I just don't know that those players are out there. I mean, Lonzo probably is available. I see some people in the Discord, even as we speak right now, talking in the Discord. Shout out the Discord about Kobe White. I just don't think he's available, and I think if he were available, we'd have to pay too much to get him. Um, there's other players out there. I feel like this is unfortunately something that we're just going to have to address in free agency in a year or two. But we don't have the players. Like we're gonna have to sign some mid-level guy like Alonzo Ball or a Dennis Schroeder or something like that in the meantime. That's just a stopgap until we can make a bigger free agent signing or a bigger trade. So because I don't see Dillingham being ready in a year. I don't see him next year suddenly just like jumping up and being like, you know what, I'm now capable of being the halftime starter. Like Mike plays 20 minutes, I play 20 minutes. I don't see that necessarily happening. I don't see that Clark can't be our primary ball handler. That just can't be it. So no, like long answer is that like we need that change because Mike is too old, and although he still has some spunk defensively and he can still hit some threes as you pointed out, it's just how many games this season where we're like, okay, Mike scored 3 points today on 1 of 10 shooting or 1 of whatever. It was not a good season, and at times it seemed like it was just over for him. So, I mean, he was acceptable at times, but in general, it was not a good season, and we need something new.
He kind of represents what's like amazing about the NBA. Like I really liked his career arc. And boy, does it suck, kind of like a Rubio, that like he might not win a championship, and he's like the player that should have won a championship in his this tenure in his career. I mean, I'm sure he peaked in his Memphis days, and then he really like rejuvenated a Utah team. And he came here at the right time. Like I really thought he came to Minnesota at the right time. I think it might be time to let go.
Yeah.
And I don't know where he goes and who is wanting someone like him. And it sucks to say that out loud because I'm kind of a Mike Stan, honestly. I want Conley to succeed. I want Conley to win. So if like we're trading him, weirdly to say like we do this, we've done this before. It'd be great to trade him to a championship team, you know?
Yeah.
And like get quality back, but if not, like maybe a future asset or a current like pick, like the first, second round. I don't know what he can really get for us.
Yeah.
I feel like there's like a lot of moves that can be made, and I don't think many teams are like, ooh, but what about Conley? Unless they're trying to shed salary. And then I also really don't know how we can compensate for that when we're trying to also shed salary and get better and get stronger. Like, I just think that he was in the postseason kind of like a turnstile. Like, I think he has moments, but you said moments. He's not like a formidable defensive player that he used to be. Like he has the tendencies, but he doesn't have the skill anymore. The offensive player, the opponent, is just so much bigger, faster, and stronger than him. So it's rough. It's rough out there for him. I wouldn't mind a reduced role where he's the backup point guard to a Dillingham. I would like not necessarily be opposed to that, just to see it like flat out see it through February or something. But like if his role is reduced to 10, 15 minutes a game, I don't want him starting.
I know, and that seems like I mean, it seems like what's going to happen. If I had to guess what's going to happen, I mean, if I had to guess the whole situation, I think we run it back for the most part, and we do almost the same thing. I think Mike plays a 15 because there was some interview. I think Chris Finch. I don't even know who was interviewing him, but he said something to the effect of like, "Yeah, I think we found a sweet spot for Mike playing 15 to 20 minutes or something to that degree." And it's like, well, I mean, I guess, but like Mike seemed like he struggled this season. So I agree with you. I do think starting Dillingham, I just don't think he's at all ready. And I think that would be trouble for our record and our team. But maybe they are going to go out and get Alonzo or somebody like that because I feel like we need it. But yeah, I don't know. But for Mike's grade, I mean, I feel like it has to be old tier. We put him in old tier all year. And I feel like that's probably where it is.
I think so.
it's an old slash. I mean, we do care about him. We care about you, bud, but you were old. So I think that's where it is. Sorry, Mike.
Um, boy, would this suck to lose Nikhil Alexander Walker. I just think it's a money thing, but
Yep.
he played in all 82 games. He basically averaged, 10 points and a couple stats here and there and the other. He's basically 40% 3-point shooter and, above 50% field goal shooter. I don't know, man. These are just stats that I just don't know really what to talk about. Other than I just thought he presented some of the best and also like the middling of our team. Like, I don't want him to go, but we see Clark at the helm, right? Ready to just bite. And I think we could maybe allow for like a sign and trade or some sort of 3-team trade. I don't know anything, but it would be great to get something from him or out of him, if not re-sign. But I don't think he's going to take less. So it's been real. He was remarkable. I would put him in a nice category. What's really great is that he presented also like this like young leader without necessarily needing to be one. He represented like a very, very like stoic presence in our team full of like not idiots, but like we had some like issues mentally, and like it'd be great to have more players like Na around to like like keep the peace, so
I agree. I don't have a lot to add. I kind of said some stuff I think on Twitter a while back, but I'll be I assume he leaves, and I'm going to be very sad when he leaves, because he was very valuable to us at points both this season and last.
He's SGA's cousin.
He is. Fun fact. Yeah, it's gonna suck to lose him, but at the same time, we have younger players, like you said, in Jalen Clark and Darren Shannon Jr. and everybody that can come in instead, that I think will be very exciting, and maybe contribute similarly. But yeah, it's gonna suck to lose Na, and I would, what I was really hoping is that if we made some kind of a trade for a Durant or somebody else, we were trading multiple players that allowed for us to re-sign Na and have those players that we're talking about fill in for roles for players. That was kind of my hope, because that to me seems good. But it just doesn't seem that way. If we are going to run it back, watching some other people talk about cap space and stuff like that, it seems as if we cannot bring him back unless he takes a lot less money, which to a degree, one of the teams that was talked about the most having him was the Magic. And then they spent all their cap space trading for Desmond Bane. Yeah. So, I think there's other teams still that would be interested. I'm sure the Lakers might have some interest. There's probably some other teams. I don't know off the top of my head, but he's obviously a valuable player. I don't know that he's necessarily going to be like crazy expensive, but it's just where we are in the second apron. We're not going to either be able to go into paying him, or if we do, it might just be too costly. So we'll see. Maybe there's some weirdness where nobody's interested, and this is just a weird off season. So he signs another 1-year deal at a similar rate that he's at right now. But I'm not. I don't think that's going to happen. It seems like he's gone.
It's funny. Everything we like are talking about him is always positive. Why wasn't he able to start? There's a reason why, and I think it's just because there's a ball handling issue with him, and he's not necessarily a playmaker. He is a kind of like a jack of all trades player, and so he's in a weird position on our team and in most rosters. Like, can he start on most rosters? I would love for that to happen, but like he's more of a 2 than he is a 1 or a 3, right? And a 2 is where most everyone's all-star player is, if not a 3. So he's going to be guarding the best player, of course, but like, is that like duplicated like talent on the court when we have Jalen Clark and Jaden McDaniels and even Ant to a lesser extent can like play those roles? Like, is he just like repeating like skill sets? And so
it is. We have too many players that have a similar skill set where it's like they're a guard, but they're not like a sure ball handler. Like I don't trust anybody that is our point guard other than maybe Mike. to be able to be like, okay, we have a team that's going to be pressuring us up, putting like doubling the ball handler. Can they not turn the ball over? Almost nobody on our team, I feel confident with it. So,
Yeah.
and it's like there's Naw, there's Dillingham, there's Jalen Clark, there's Ant, there's Jaden, all these players that might, or even Julius. None of
Yeah.
them, I'm like, oh, I feel super confident in this.
Yeah.
And we need that player. So we need to consolidate some of those players into
Agreed.
one that is a sure ball handler. And I don't know who that player is again, but
Yeah.
if there's a player out there, that's what Tim Connolly needs to have happen ASAP, because otherwise it's going to be the same situation. We can have good season. Play teams are going to be able to get game plan against that, but you might be able to survive the regular season. But when you get into the postseason, especially against a team like the Thunder, who are the best at turning the ball over, and you are the worst at turning the ball over to the other team, that's a problem. So you need to figure that out without costing or without it costing too much. So
Timely 3-point shooter. It feels like we're like saying sayonara, but maybe
yeah,
we'll smell you later again. We'll see. We'll see you later, bud. I feel strongly about the duplicative comment, and I also think like, hey man, a couple years ago when we were in the play-in against OKC and Shea got shut down by Nah. Like it was
yeah,
such a cool ass moment in our season. Was him shutting down Shea. Only for us to lose. That's okay. Doesn't matter. I think that was the year where we lost in 5 to Denver or something.
yeah.
Um, but like we're gonna miss his clutch shooting, but we can find that in elsewhere. Dante DiVincenzo represents that answer. He is not a point guard. He is
No.
definitely a shooting guard in the Malik Beasley
Yes.
form, but he's also kind of like a hustler on the defensive end, and he can do a lot of things. He sometimes does the wrong thing, but he doesn't have a whole lot of rope to really like experiment. He's either shooting or off the court. He was what I was really excited about when we made
I
that
know.
trade.
Same.
In 62 games because he was injured, 11 points on pretty interesting and good efficiency. What good efficiency? Basically, 40% 3-point shooter. That's my analysis. But eye test is a little bit different than his numbers. He was very hot and he was very cold. And in the moments where he didn't even show up in playoffs moments, it's like, what do we trade you for,
Yeah.
bud?
Yeah. There were, yes, you're talking about it, but like he had, like, when the ball is going in, he's hitting his threes. It feels like this is the player that Timberwolves have needed all of forever, um, of every iteration of this team. But then there were some moments, especially late in the season, where I was like, I don't know how you are in the NBA. Like there were times where in the playoffs, they were just switching on to Dante, and Dante was unable to hold his own defensively against anyone. It was bad. And then when the shooting's not going in, it's like you can't afford his bad defense and bad shooting. So it was trouble. Now, of course, he has the capability of getting really hot, and we don't need him to be a major player for us. So, like, he's been our sixth, seventh, eighth man kind of a player. And to have that as your sixth, seventh, eighth man, I think is super valuable. But as we just were talking about with Naw, he's another one of those players that's a guardish player that isn't necessarily the most sure ball handler. Again, it's one of these times where you want to consolidate, you want to get rid of these duplicates. I do think there's this possibility that he can fit into our team very well as as somebody that Ant can pass out to and hit threes. Jaden has struggled to do that to a degree for him. So if you have a Dante out there instead or a Nas, that feels really good. But you can't have Dante filling because Dante's not going to be the point guard. So he kind of has to be a sixth man for you. And I like that, but is he actually good? And that's the other thing, is that a lot of what everybody and myself included, I'm a victim of this. Victim's not the right word, but I was looking at his playoffs with New York last year, and I was like, wow, he's phenomenal. He was he was single handedly winning them games, and I expected, oh, he's going to come into this season and do that for us. Um, Not the case. It was a struggle, especially in the beginning. He had some good games. Of course, he had many. I don't know how many 20-point games he had. There's a lot, um, but there were still a ton of struggles. So I think where I am grade wise on him is probably somewhere. I don't know. I mean, I'm probably at like it's I highest maybe meh we care about you, but maybe Wancho. I like it's weird. It's because there were times where he took away from the team. And I think this is me reading too much between the lines, but I think early in the season he was playing very much for himself and he was not enthused to be in Minnesota, not enthused to be the seventh or eighth option behind Naz Reid. He wanted to be a starter. Um, but as the season went on, it was clear that he was not that. But I think he was just mad that he was losing the leverage that he had in New York to end the season last season. And he was kind of sour on that. And I think that affected the team. Even if he said otherwise in interviews, I think it was bothering him to the point where it was affecting his on the court play and the team as a whole.
I think he's we care about you, bud. I don't know if there's any Wanchos at least yet on our roster as we're getting through the rest of the team. I think he still presents like a long-term solution in terms of like just a shooter, the pair side, a pair long side, and I think there's a closing lineup where he can even be like the ball handler bringing up the court, where we're pretty much just waiting for Ant to take the ball and make something happen. And to have like a spread 5 lineup for Ant is like a dream for him, really, because then he can get to the rim and he can play make with the best of them. Mm-hmm. As long as Dante is making shots, as long as Dante is not a sieve on the other end. He went against Chet Holmgren in the OK series. He's like, look, I'm going to pull a reverse layup, and that did not happen. I could not believe my eyes. Like that was his mentality. Yeah, there is some potential I don't think there's any rumors. I might even be making this up, but the culture wasn't the best in the playoffs. Like I feel like there was some obvious moments where people were heated, hot-headed, and getting each other's face about like role, and they want it. Like all these players want to be in the moment and take over and and kind of ascend their trajectory or their role. But like, look at what just happened with Pacers and OKC. They all bought into what their role was at any given moment. Exactly. And Obi Toppin is popping off for 20. Thomas Bryant gets 3 threes in the game against the Knicks. It's like they bought into that and they relished that role. Whereas I feel like all of these players that we might be mentioning want more of a role. Mm-hmm. And is that bad culture, Finch? Is that buy into the culture because it's Finch? Or is that just a self-centered player? And is that what we got in Dante DiVincenzo?
Well, yeah, and that was another thing that you're talking about, bringing up Finch. It was like people had problems with Finch all season, and everybody kind of came back to defend him, and it was saying like, well, he's managing these like feelings in the locker room. But it's like, do we want that? Do we need to be managing feelings? Do we, or should we just be more, hopefully, everyone in the league, more than just the Timberwolves, every other team. I mean, of course, I just want the Timberwolves, but looks at the finals and says, wow, these were 2 teams that totally bought in, regardless of who was on the one night, who was off one night. They could care less. I mean, Halliburton had multiple like single-digit point games, and nobody cared because it was like, okay, we can still win. We have other pieces. We have other ways of winning. That's what we need. And again, I'm assuming here. I don't know anything. Neither of us know anything about this, but like there were vibes at times that it did seem like that was maybe an issue, and that there was times that people wanted more of a role or whatever it may be. So I think meh, we care about you, bud, is fair. I was hoping that this was going to be like coming into the season. I was really expecting that it was going to be like, wow, Dante like ascended and solved a million of our problems. But it wasn't that. it could still happen, and I'm not like lost hope on it. But it just didn't happen this year. So
I also think that he is a very tradable asset. Like, not that I want to trade him
yep.
at all. I'm just like, I would fear what he can do on another team. It's
Yes.
just, we need shooting, and we need shooting bad. Uh,
Yeah.
and he perhaps presents that solution. We need hustlers. We need 50 ball getters, and he presents that. And a big thing about our team right now is that we are big, but we're just an average rebounding team.
Mhm.
We were maybe top 5 defensive team towards the end of the season, but we were just
Yeah.
like an average defensive team.
Yeah.
I think Dante could like level up
He can.
and be every answer that we need